Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel, Art Classes My Way, and we are going to be doing some more of this. Now I didn't intend for this to just be one ring by itself. I intend for it to be not a full glove, but close to a whole handpiece with a bracelet that wraps around as well and even comes up through in here. Now this is an articulated ring, a claw ring, a whole finger ring. There's a lot of names for these guys. And he works out pretty well. It doesn't work out so great with some of my other fingers because my fingers are, or at least these two guys, they're curved, where at least my pinky and my ring finger are actually straight. If I put it on my other finger, you kind of end up seeing part of my finger come through on the other side. And it's not a flaw necessarily in the ring, it's just a flaw in my own hand. So we're going to be continuing with this. Pretty much all of the techniques for doing this part were shown in the first ring video that I made. It was the dragon eye ring, and it was just a little guy by himself. And I figured that no point in showing you pretty much the exact same thing again, but I did pretty much end up with quite a few requests. I was thinking it would be more of a silent video. On top of that, the rest of the recording ended up getting corrupted for the other two segments where I started talking about connecting and making it more segmented. Those got lost. So we're going to retake those, and since I planned on making a couple more segments to this ring anyway, it ends up working out just fine. So again, this video, it's pretty much two parts. This took quite a long time to do because it is in 3 parts. We'll talk a little bit about it. Let me just take that off here. So in the 2-part video you would see online, the first part ends up being the main body of this ring here. That's part 1. Part 2 is the actual ring itself, and it is a free size ring up to pretty good size finger. If the finger gets too terribly much bigger than these corner pieces, which are built pretty strong because it is the first part of the ring plus all of the metal for the actual free size ring itself. And so you would have to actually bend up in here for a substantially larger finger. From there, the third part is pretty much this little X bug shape. It made it look like a little water bug there for a little while, which was pretty much just folded the feelers like the little antennas under here. And it went underneath and acted as a base for this eyeball. So that way I had something I could glue that eyeball to. It was a lot more substantial and solid rather than the curve that is the first piece of this ring. And then it's just wrapping around to the sides, and then you have those great big long antenna, and then just wrapping around here, and just fiddling around and doing silly things. I also didn't, I guess one of the good things now is that, even though I didn't show you too terribly much as far as this piece, this guy can stand alone by himself. He's quite beautiful without the rest of the ring. But when I added pretty much this part in here, the whole front part, which is pretty much just the side, which it was a circular piece, so I guess it's really made up of 4 pieces. The circular piece that I put around the eyeball, he just pretty much comes round. I made a central location to keep him all clustered together, bring some of the silver from the bottom up to the top, and I just made a creative little design, which ends up turning into, see if you guys can see any of the detail in there, pretty much ends up turning into the hinge part for this part of the ring. Now, this could have been done better, and this is my very first attempt at doing a segmented ring, so at the same time where I wanted it to be kind of silent, because I didn't know 100% what I was doing and how to go about doing it at the time. I know a lot better now that I've actually finished and made one of these guys myself, so I can do a lot better and a little bit better than this. While it's been, anytime I've worn it long term, this whole apparatus here it's really stood up. It's been pretty sturdy as far as holding on to everything. It was mostly the shaping it ended up being one of the more time-consuming parts, so that way it didn't rub or catch when moving. It does just a slight bit, but not very, very barely. And it's pretty much just, which ones were you? 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so it was pretty much just these 2 wires wrapped around underneath. Then these 2 wires at the top came back and went underneath those 2, and then looped over, crisscrossed over, and then brought them around and basically tucked them in and hid them underneath in here. So this went around underneath these 2, and these 2 overlapped this guy and then came back around and went underneath. And then these 2 guys, pretty much I just wrapped them in black wire and then just came around to the side and made that. Now, this part's probably a little bit overall better part of the design. And should these wires wear out, I just constantly looped and looped and looped there. I really do plan to eventually put a jump ring in there. Something a little more solid, or even a rivet would probably be better long term, the life of this piece, than just loopy, 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 loop. Just to let you guys know. But this is my first one, and experimenting going on quite a bit. So yeah, that is my segmented ring. Pretty much this guy ends up being the key to everything, so that's where we're going to focus on for this video. I'm going to find the middle of this wire, and I just cut myself a really good size length of wire. I'd say that's probably, if not a foot, then really close to a foot. And we're going to find the middle here. And I'm going to change this middle segment just a little bit. I'm not going to recreate this part of the ring. I'm going to basically recreate these 2 parts. So that way, when wearing the whole glove, one, if you put your fingers together and you have this on one side and then this on the other, your fingers, it's going to be pretty uncomfortable. So I'm going to change the design a little bit to show you a little bit of why I did this kind of hammering here. Plus, this is really easy to do. You don't want, for your middle segment, you really don't want any frills or anything like that, because pretty much it ends up being what goes underneath all the other segments. If I decided to put more claw going backwards, which I will do on the second go around, then that part would have to go over the top of this, and you want those two to be able to interact with each other correctly, plus interacting with this piece correctly as well. So we're going to change the design a little bit. We're going to make him echo basically this part of this ring, and I'm going to show you how and why I did that. So find the middle, get her square nose, and just mush, mush, mush. All right. I got my bench block, hammer, and what I'm basically doing is I'm going to be hammering this guy. I'm going to be work hardening him quite a bit, and I'm basically wanting to kind of turn him into a point. Now, it's not going to actually point itself. That's going to involve files, and by the time you get files involved in this, you're really going to want to solder that end. If you don't, then you could end up filing down into your groove here, and then you're going to lose it, or the pieces are going to separate into two. So this is not strengthening this whole piece against that fact. If anything, it's going to make it a lot easier to break there. And that's where, for the longevity of the piece, that's where this wire weaving is going to be pretty essential overall to keep the piece together and keep the stress off of that end. But it still gives us a nice finished looking end. So what I basically do is I'll be hammering this guy and rotating him. And you're going to get little, think of it like pinching. With your hammer, you're going to be pinching little bits of the copper off. You don't want to do that too much, but do expect a little tiny bit of that to happen. And it's just working it going round and round until you're pretty much satisfied, but again, don't go too far with it. Once you get to the point where you're liking what you have, that's when you start tapping lighter and lighter, so that way you don't leave big ding marks in the end piece. If you start tapping lighter, you're going to kind of smooth out what you're doing. So, and here we go. And this part, it is pretty difficult to keep hold of this. You might even want to use your pliers because you will want to rotate and twist. Alright, so I've gotten it to the point where it's pretty much how I want it. As I can rotate the piece, I can see it, instead of feeling like two round halves have come together to make a rounded end, it feels more like one whole round rod ends up being split in two. So think of an arrow shaft in Robin Hood. You want it to look like this whole end was one big solid piece of copper that had been split down the middle. And that's pretty much, I'm pretty much happy with that. And that's really the only shaping I'm doing with this. If I want to go real extreme, again, files are going to have to be involved, and we're going to have to solder in there. So, put my bitch block away, and hammer. Now, at this point, we can open it up a little bit. Now, we don't want to work too much with this guy, because, I mean, this is like a wishbone. We can, pretty easy. So I'm just very gently going to open that up, and since he is this piece, you're going to be taking a lot of measurements if you're making on yourself to make sure that this is comfortable. And pretty much wearing both pieces, if not, if this is your first one, then you're going to be putting it on yourself a lot. For me, I will be wearing both pieces a lot to ensure that it is comfortable. And from here, for a second ring, I can either shorten this up so that way the tip of this lines up here and it feels a lot more natural that way. And I can give it some length so that way I can give it a little bit of hump right there. Or I can go really, I don't know if I cut enough wire for that, and go really far, make it match, but then when I curve my hand, then this whole part here will be exposed, and then I'll have that part there. So either one sounds like a lot of fun. But what I want to do with the claw end here, I'm going to make this guy shorter, and actually I think I'm going to make him pretty much end either in front or behind the ring here. Behind? Front. I'm going to make him end somewhere in there, and then I think I'm going to go really exaggerated with the first part of the segment. So, when wearing, good. About in there, so I'm going to make it a little longer so that way I can get some curve. Pull it off. Alright, so I'm going to come in here and bend that down. Okay. And same for over here. Make sure I grab it in the same spot. Too much. There, much better. Now, since I had to rebend this, I'll come in here with my flat nose and just go ahead and smush, 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 smush. Makes it a lot nicer. Now, we're going to put a little bit of a hump in this, so that way it matches the arc there. But this isn't going to be the final bit of it, so there's going to be still plenty of maneuvering. But you want to make sure that it's comfortable to wear. You don't want to, like, if your fingers go backwards and then stab yourself in the hand. That's not going to be very comfortable. So I might want it to be more like that. So that puts, so go ahead and make these go straight down. And then I'll kind of pin it between my fingers. That. And then when I bend, so that way I know what it's going to pretty much look like. So it might have just a little bit up, so I'll angle it to where I feel comfortable. It should be nice and comfortable for somebody else to wear if I sell this. Slide my fingers out of there, and then let go. I'll fold this back, and that's pretty much about the same length. Fold that back. Which is, this is exactly how I built this ring in the beginning, and I did it as well with this one down here at this end. So, like little pieces, and I want to do the exact same thing with this ring that I did with this one. I want to build a separate ring, so that way it's resizable. I mean, you could make this resizable as well. I'm just adding more textures and such. So, put that back there, and then give you a little curve, and curve you, and yep. Just kind of sighten it and making sure it all falls where I want it. Be right in there, because I want it to come down the side of my finger just a little bit. Now I can see that the angle of this is really far back. So we'll straighten it out this way. Because if we straighten out this end that we just did, if we straighten this out to correct this, then this will go down. Well, we don't want that to go down. So we make that straight up and down. It ends up touching my knuckle a little bit. So we'll go a little more. There. Her straight is barely tickling the top of my knuckle there. So that means these guys need to go way further down. Okay. Straighten this out. It's got a little too much hump. Okay. Pulling down just a little bit. Trying to go for symmetry does count. Yeah, that gives a nice little squeeze. Now, I want to do this area, and since I've actually made this already ahead of time, I can show you how to do something a little better than what I actually ended up doing. So we'll find right in here. So I wanted this to come down at least to that point. I could raise it just a teeny tiny bit. Point that straight down, so that way I roughly know where I am. Point that more straight down. There. And then he's holding himself on there nice. That's a pretty good sign. Well, at least it allows you to make sure everything feels right. So I feel that has enough upward arc for that. And then if I turn, you still get a nice dramatic up claw there. So I think that's working out pretty good. So now we need to make, thinking ahead when we attach the claw part, we need to make basically a hoop in there so he can attach himself. So I'll put this back on. About right in there. And one all the way around. Let go, rotate, grab somewhere else. I want this to point back up. Like so. And now we got ourselves a built-in little hoop that'll hold on to the next segment. And now let's hope and pray I can grab it in the right spot here. Let's make sure they're nice and same height, even. Yeah, alright. And when you go in to grab for this part, you're not trying to get the bottom lined up with anything. You're basically trying to get the end of your pliers to be in the middle of that section. That's pretty darn close. So, around we go. Let go, rotate, grab hold again. And same. And that's going a little too far up the pliers, so I'll just snug these guys together a little bit. Just kind of undo it and rewrap. There. Yeah. Helps if you rotate in the right direction, don't it? Alright. forward. And there we go. So I'm going to straighten out a few things here. It's always good to adjust and straighten as you go. Make sure everything's going to turn out the right way. Now as far as these two go, this is a pretty simple part of the process. And you just fold them over. Yeah. And we know roughly where the next section is going to end up being. I'm going to scoot this back because I really want, when it comes to doing your segments, I want them either, this has to be the front part of this segment, I want it to be behind where I bend. So that way when I actually move this finger and I have that ring attached around this finger, the movement happens with this. As opposed to putting it in front, then if you did move it, then you wouldn't get as much result. So, all right. So we got a little carried away, but we got a real good one with this piece. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a hold of it in the middle, the hoops that we put on. Come on. Just shake this by hand real quick. There, close. So we're going to grab one of these guys in the middle. Rotating out. And then make sure everything's in alignment. This is a little taller, but yeah, there. And you want these guys to meet in the middle, otherwise you're going to have to make up some ground. That's a little too tall for my finger. There we go. So this guy over too far, so I'll just rotate him away a little bit. And I am happy with that. So once you spend time shaping and making sure that everything's all right, it's exactly where you want it to be, make sure everything is comfortable, and you don't want the top of this to go any very much taller than this, because then remember, this guy I'm going to do him a little bit more exaggerated. I'm going to give him the forward claw, or in his case, I'm going to put the claw on the back as well. So we don't want this part to go up very tall at all. We want to be able to have the clearance. And that's pretty good. So I'm going to just even a few things up, and I'll be back with you. As you can see, one side's taller than the other there. That's a pretty quick repair, so that's nothing. You just rotate up and straighten out. And so this guy sets nice and evenly across the top. He's sitting on his little feetsies really well. So I'm ready to move on to the next part. It's not 100% perfect, but once we get the weaving going in between, it's going to feel a lot better. And it's going to be more solid, and then we can move and make things into the positions we want a lot easier. It may take a little bit more hand strength, but overall, it'll hold its shape a whole lot better. So I'm going to cut myself a length of wire, and I want it just a little bit longer than this guy, so I'm going to keep here. And this is going to be kind of like a ribs that we got going through each one of these pieces. You have a middle piece here, middle piece in there, which actually that middle piece is these two. When it's just a straight piece like this, that's plenty easy to do. That's no big deal. But when you have these curving arcs, you want to make sure that you have enough. We'll just turn these two into decoration, or we'll make this the basic backbone. I'm going to leave a little bit of overhang. I'm going to start shaping with my fingers to match the same curve. Just about. I don't want him to go down and then over. I want to be able to kind of bridge the gap. But just do it a little bit at a time. You want to make sure you give yourself enough tail to be able to grab hold of. Alright, just to show you guys, I've gone around this side 3 times. Like, if you just go round, 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 you're going to end up with gaps in between. So I go around 3 times. Once I get started, I go around 3 times, come up from underneath, go back around, and you can see how nice and loose that is. Now, to try to keep this going upwards, if you just pull and tighten, it's going to eventually just keep pulling this until it's pretty much the same level as everything else. So I put my thumb on the back, my thumbnail, and as I'm pulling, I'm also pushing my thumbnail backwards. 1, that helps guide it, and 2, it keeps this from falling down. And then once I've got that, go around, do the same thing, because I don't want that side to change either. 1 and 2, and that one moved on me. That was my fault though. There we go. And then come back from underneath, nice and loose, and then follow. So you can see it's starting to get that curve going to it. Then again, you can even do it with the side of your nails. 1, 2, 3. And you might even just have to adjust after each wrap. It depends on how important getting those shapes are to you. Just curve that back the way it was. What you can do is, if you have one of these like ball peen hammers, you can take this guy, just kind of roll him underneath. If you want to pop this middle up a little bit, if he's gotten flattened, because obviously as we're going, I'm moving my fingers forward and forward. So even though I may have, well, thank you much. Even though I may have enough wire for it to stand up like the way I want it to stand up, I might have flattened it as I've been working. So I can go in and just start rounding him and rubbing him to try to reshape the way I want it to actually be. So there we are. And that's some BS. There's a new tail. And we'll just keep on. Now that I've gotten a little further along, I'm going to go ahead and rotate this guy a little bit. I'm going to nip off, but I want to leave a little bit of tail and kind of echo a little bit of what's been going on back here. There's quite a few decorative elements on the back of that ring, so we'll just echo it just a little bit, but we're going to go a little bit less over the top and just give it just a little curl. Nothing big.
at this point, he's fitting really nicely. I did have to resize a little bit, and something to just be mindful of as you go, and you probably already figured it out by this point, is obviously this started out way wider than what it did, and I kept having to adjust and adjust. That just comes with practice and time to try to keep from doing that, and again, a thinner wire will also keep that from happening. I mean, this guy's like what? No idea what gauge this is. Oh well. But I mean, it's a small gauge, but something like a 30, a 32, that's gonna, you're not gonna have any problems really, unless you're just being silly, like pulling everything together really tight. But you're not gonna have a problem with like a 30 or a 32. But the more you go up in the size and everything, then the more difficult it's going to be. Now I'm going to change tactics. Instead of having this curving inwards because it's on the bottom, it's underneath. Now I need to start allowing for the shape of the finger and start bowing it upwards, which this guy starts to do right around in here. And that allows it to still have a bit of a curve upwards. That's where shaping it on the ball peen hammer is going to help. And you're going to try to keep this pretty loosey-goosey so that way you can shape the excess length with this guy. So now I'm going to change to, instead of just constantly going underneath the spine, now I'm going to go 2 over 1, 2, and then go 1 on top, and then 1, 2, and shimmy there. Now, instead of going around and then going over the top, because then you're going to start getting an up and down pattern, which is fine. I mean, you can do what you want, but I personally, I like the more cage look. So I'm going to go underneath, go around 1 time. So it's just like what I've been doing for this whole spine this entire time. And then go around here, and then 1, 2, and then I can go over the top again, 1, and then 1, 2, underneath, 1, and if you can see that at all, you can see how wide those are, which they look good, but now because they're so wide in between, that allows me again to go in with the ball peen hammer and shape the underside. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to go ahead and keep on going. If you want to change tactics at this point, feel free. If you want to keep with this weave that you started with at the top, I recommend trying to get a little looser, especially if you're coming in from the bottom, so that way you can shape it, so that way it's more rounded underneath like a finger ought to be, and be a little bit more comfortable to wear. So I'll see you guys soon. So I've gotten down to where you might run into a bit of a problem at this point, where, okay, do I start weaving this down or do I keep going across the top? That's up to you. Now I've decided that I'm going to reshape how my little side pieces are, and that is by moving them forward a little bit. And then I can reshape that tail a little later. But I'm moving forward some more. That's not doing it. So that essentially what I'm doing is I'm making them quite a bit shorter. Move forward, move forward. I'm holding on to my two front pieces so that way they can't really move. That's a little too much. Bring it back down. There. This is an ever morphing and changing process. And as far as it not fitting as well as it did in the beginning, well, that's because I got this weave here and I haven't shaped it yet. So I'll go ahead and do that. Yep. And you shape it, and it's going to get tighter a little bit if you've gone too far with it, which is all just fine. You can just kind of pull it down to the side and reshape it to actually fit your finger a little better. Now, because these two pieces are so far back, they obviously, I can't attach a ring underneath here anymore because I didn't keep track of that while I was building it. Because if I try to bend my finger, then the ring is just going to try to go up through my finger. So it'll keep my finger from actually bending. But we can still do something with it regardless. And what I'm going to do is find my square nose and I'm going to smash these guys together. That way it's a little smaller, and then we don't have to worry about going down and weaving into all that. Which is what I did with this guy and this guy anyway. And that ended up fixing a few things, because now, because squishing them, they're actually back into where my finger bends, and I could rearrange some of this wire work a little bit, shorten this up, which actually we could do that with a little bit of a decorative element here. So I'm going to go kind of in there. Which this is going to be more of a decorative element for the inside. Now I'm going and put my fingernail in here and just take this back wire or the side wire, and I'm just kind of pushing it around so that way it ends up going behind. You stand back up. There. These are still going to need to be resized. But overall, that's still shortened up the sides quite a bit. And I'm just checking what you guys are seeing here. Now he has gotten quite a bit too narrow, which, even if, right. For the top part of the finger, so we can just go ahead and just shape these little guys. Kind of make them ring shaped themselves, just give them a little bit of curve, which of course changes the front. So when we come in here and rotate these guys back out where they need to be, these boys ought to still have some curve to them. Which makes them act a little bit like a ring, but not quite. Obviously, because it doesn't go all the way around, but it still allows it to hold on to the finger. There we go. That's much more comfortable. Oh, if you put it on the right hand, though, or the right finger. So that allows it to still hold on to my finger and still be able to move. Obviously, this isn't going to move because I don't have the ring yet. I just tie it down. And that's nice and comfortable. So basically what it's done is, since it was getting too narrow, by rounding it out, brought these guys up a little shorter, which allowed them to be a little bit wider again. So now that we have done that, we can go ahead and continue on with our weave. Again, trying to be careful to keep from narrowing anything and so on. But I got, like I was doing 2, 1, 2. Just go ahead and go underneath, which is where it was supposed to go anyway. And I'm going to do this pretty loose. And I'm even going to do this around like my finger being right up underneath there, to allow it to have enough slack that I can shape it. And you can even shape it as, you know, you get from one side to the other with the hammer. And then I'm going to go across the top. Nice and loose. Now we're getting to the point where it's time to start deciding, do you want to go ahead and weave down this way, or do you want to just keep going straight? If you weave down this way, you're going to end up with a little bit of a triangular shape, and your wire is going to basically fill in and make the triangle down here, which will cut into where your finger is supposed to go. Because of the shape of this, with this one I just left it rounded and went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But because I put this on here, and it ended up where with this one I did go down and then I went back up, but that's on a ring, and the ring is basically the top most part of your finger as it is. So how that's shaped pretty much isn't so much for comfort of your finger as it was just more aesthetics. But this is more for the shape of your finger. So I would recommend, in this case, going ahead and going straight across. We'll put that little curve back in here. And it may end up looking a little bit funny to you because you're going to have a big gap in there. And I'll show it to you. You can see how it's starting to come down so far. We'll just go ahead and jump across, actually. We'll do, instead of 2, we'll just do one wrap. Jump across, but keeping in mind that we need to have enough loose wire to push that up. Mind enough loose wire before we tighten it. Yep. Wrap one around and then jump the bridge. I'm just going to fill this all in with wrapped wire as far as like the downward part of it. We'll work our way all the way back up. Okay. Now we have that.
Gotten pretty
I'm
far
gonna leave myself
on this. Now I know this
tail
weave
to work with
is
in
not
case I come
exactly
across
attractive,
an area
but
where I could
underneath all
fill
this,
in
it's not very
or
attractive
tuck it
either.
in
I have
really
a bunch
nice.
of top stuff that makes it look a lot better,
Going back that way.
which is what we will do with this
Push it
as
down.
well. Now
And
that
then we're
I've
gonna come
gotten
back
to
over
this
here.
point,
And because this is like up, down, it's got this really
it's not
cool little
uncomfortable.
cage going where we can stick a tail in.
so
And we can tie it off somewhere else.
what I'm doing
when we're
at this
done.
point is that I went
Yeah.
a couple of wraps
So you can see how that
downwards on
worked
the
out real nice.
inside, and now I'm climbing
nice and
up the
tight,
outside
and then
here,
Wrap.
and I'm going to go ahead and wrap, single wrap,
gonna get a good long length of wire. And then we're just gonna go in and just start sewing. Got him all wrapped and finished up on that end, so got this nice long bit that we can still work with wherever we want. And I'm gonna get this guy just doing some reshaping and reworking, and now I'm gonna go right back to the weave that I was last using. And we still want to make it nice and loose. And still trying to keep our spine going down the middle. And he's going to want to get wavy on you, obviously, because he got plenty wavy on me. But I think with more practice, it'll be easy enough to deal with in the long run. And I'm just pushing this back nice and gently to make sure that I still have enough slack that it's going to be comfortable for a finger to go in there. But also to start butting up against the other bits of spine. And you can do all kinds of things to cover super tight just this up. You can put decorative elements here. You can put another eyeball if you wanted to. Because otherwise, if we whatever it is that you're try to tighten decorating this, that guy's only wrapped around there once or twice. You could just end up unraveling the whole thing and just attach it to starting over. Which for me, we'll see what I feel like when I get to that. And rather than wrapping both sides individually, you could do like how I did here. So, and just wrap the two sides together, which I did do and continuing on at one point. So I will for one, or probably for that one. Yeah, come on. Just create a little gap for him here. I want one more in there. One more wrap if I can manage to make him find some place to go. Nope. Or I can just probably end up breaking him. There. Similar imagery, 3-3, with a little added decorative touch on top. And I'm going to take him, come through the middle, and I'm going to somewhat partially fill in a little bit more of that gap. So obviously not too much. He's just basically going to dip down right there in the middle, like so. Pull tight, and then he actually closes up that gap quite a great deal. Come on. There. And that helps that all feel a lot better. Sorry about that. Somebody called me and I lost track of where I was. So, like I was saying, you bring this guy around and you could extend or even just make this, you know, a ring already pre-built on where I have
everything.
This guy here,
and I've decided to end mine a little bit more on the decorative side. So
because I wasn't really,
I brought one side around.
I was trying to figure out what it was I was going to do overall with
this guy around. Which
so what I'm going to do with him
overlaps
I'm going to
just
go ahead
a little
and
bit
finish
right
wrapping
there,
all
and then
that,
I'll just twine these two together,
which allows him to come straight along the back side here.
Well, not twine,
which allows
but, you know,
me to wrap this around the straight in the back. So we'll just anchor this down, pull him nice and tight, and we'll finish off that last wire. A nice little 3 curl thing there, which kind of imitates the end on this one a little bit, but at the same time it still feels like this piece. So kind of combined the two a little bit. Oh, come on. Can't even keep hold of that. There. Kind of combined them just a little bit, but not too much. I even brought a little bit of this guy because into it. An overall design, so it's a little bit of all 3. And even something like that's alright. You just want to kind of follow the same rules overall that you end up setting for yourself. And go ahead and lick this around for a 3rd wrap. There. We'll just shimmy this guy over where he needs to be. And we can continue to go upwards here. And just go ahead and lasso this tallest guy down. So what I did was pretty much arrange these guys to, and they're not exactly mirroring, but it's a similar, just like in here. This isn't the piece that's holding on to any part of the finger. It's the claw part that's making. But I did go ahead and sew on a wire to the bottom. So when the ring inside of the claw part moves, here is where that makes the rest of this go with it. You can do what I did and so have we don't have to worry about completely different ring, completely separate from everything woven, and then attach the ring from there. But and you could do more decorative things to go ahead and wrap between. You can do the body, any variety of things you want. Ring that's already this is about a week old, so all the copper's just a little bit more tarnished, and then wrap about by a week. These guys more tarnished going down.